Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Nefertiti's Secret Tomb. Archaeologist Nicholas Reeves from the University of Arizona believes he's finally discovered the true location of one of the most mysterious tombs in the world. Reeves believes that he has found the resting place of Nefertiti, the ancient Egyptian queen whose name still lives on 3,000 years later. Archaeologists have been speculating about the location of the queen's remains for decades. She's the very last royal mummy from the dynasty of King Tut who is yet to be located. But here's the thing, Nicholas Reeves believes her secret tomb is in the Valley of the Kings. Even more, he says it's hidden behind a wall in the same room where they found King Tut's mummy 100 years ago. The tomb hasn't actually been found just yet, meaning Nefertiti's body has yet to be excavated. Instead, Nicholas is basing his theory on detailed scans of King Tut's tomb. He believes cracks revealed in the scanning and the texture of the walls beneath the layers of paint show that there was once a door at the back of the chamber. It could lead to a storeroom, but he believes it leads to an undiscovered burial chamber. And because Nefertiti is believed to be the mother of King Tut, it only makes sense that she was buried with her son. But unfortunately, we don't know for sure because nobody is willing to take a crowbar and smash King Tut's burial chamber apart just yet. Nobody wants to be responsible for that. So for now, the whereabouts of Queen Nefertiti will remain a mystery. Number 9. An ancient cyborg. Archaeologists were shocked to discover the skull of a Peruvian warlord from 2,000 years ago. It wasn't the skull itself that surprised the researchers, but the fact that the skull was elongated and equipped with metal plating as if it had just come down from a Borg ship. The warrior didn't have any high-tech pieces of machinery stuck in his bones, but he did have pieces of his skull fused together with metal in what some believe might be the very first example of surgery. The mysterious skeleton is currently being housed at the Museum of Osteology in Oklahoma, with the scientists there saying it's one of the most interesting pieces they've ever seen. They believe the warrior was injured in a battle. When he returned to his home with a severely damaged skull and on the brink of death, Peruvian surgeons conducted a kind of early surgery to put him back together. Remember that this was 2,000 years ago. His skull had already been elongated from a young age. This suggests that he'd been of high social status. Since the skull was so long and badly damaged, the ancient Peruvian surgeons then used a chunk of metal to try and repair his fractured skull. Imagine this attempt back in the day. Quite the medical feat for the time. What's truly mysterious is that nobody knows what kind of alloy was used to create the metal. We also don't know how ancient surgeons could have possibly known to do this. There hasn't been any other example of this type of surgery found until modern times. Nobody in the ancient world thought about sticking a piece of metal into the human body to repair bone damage. Number 8. Biblical siege. When it comes to the Bible, one of the most challenging things for archaeologists is to separate fact from fiction. There are a lot of things in the Bible that happened in real life, and then some things may not have happened as they were described. One of those events is the biblical siege of Gath. The city of Gath is most known for being the hometown of the giant Goliath. Goliath was a Philistine warrior who was killed by young David, who would eventually turn into the king of Judea. But the ancient city also makes an appearance in the Book of Kings. The Old Testament describes how King Hazael of Aram conquered Gath before turning to attack Jerusalem. New archaeological excavations at Gath, which is now a city in Israel, show that it was destroyed in the 9th century BC. That was the same time that the Bible claims Hazael invaded. Archaeologists from Bar Ilan University found bone projectile points, arrowheads crafted from animal bones. These weapons prove the people of the city were fighting back against their invaders. Even though arrowheads made from copper and iron were more popular in 830 BC, the people of Gath were so desperate and low on materials that they resorted to making weapons out of bones. Looks like this story was real. Number 7. Who were the Sea Peoples? The nationality of the great sea peoples of the Mediterranean is one of the biggest archaeological mysteries that nobody seems able to solve. What we do know is that the Sea Peoples were part of a confederacy of naval raiders. They pillaged coastal towns and cities all throughout the Mediterranean region between the years 1276 and 1178 BC. They were essentially Vikings, except harassing places like Egypt and Greece instead of England and France. But what's really interesting about the Sea Peoples is that many historians believe they were one of the direct contributing forces to the collapse of the Bronze Age, and yet no one knows who they were. We don't know which nation they came from, and there are barely any records of their activities outside of some battles with Egypt. The few records that do still exist today describe them as mysterious invaders from the sea with impressive warships. Nobody could stand against them, and it seems not even the people of the ancient world knew where they came from. There are plenty of theories. Some believe the Sea Peoples came from Troy. Some say they were Etruscan or even Minoan. There is no physical evidence that they even existed. All we have are the records detailing them rising from the seas and pillaging so many coastal settlements and towns that civilization in the Bronze Age Mediterranean actually collapsed. Number 6. Giants of Doddridge County. In the summer of 1930, evidence of a race of gigantic beings was found in West Virginia. It happened in Doddridge County when Benjamin Zahn found 2 burial mounds on his property in Morganville. This is about 12 miles from Salem. The bones he discovered in these burial mounds were so big and so shocking that he needed to call in a professional. So he called Professor Ernest Sutton from Salem University to carry out professional excavations. According to Professor Sutton, each burial mound contained a megalithic chamber inside shaped from flat rocks and packaged tightly with clay. One of the mounds was quite a bit smaller than the other, only about 6 feet high and 15 feet in diameter, but the other was nearly 60 feet in diameter and contained 3 burials. There were 4 burials in total, with each skeleton belonging to a person of incredible strength and power. These men ranged anywhere from 7 to 9 feet tall. It seemed pretty obvious to every scientist involved that a race of super beings inhabited West Virginia over 1,000 years ago. These people were enormous, standing much taller than any race of people on Earth today. The problem is that the skeletons seemingly vanished after they were excavated. Nobody knows what happened to them, and so the whole affair has been ridiculed as nothing but a hoax. Do you think there really were giants in West Virginia? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Number 5. Father Crespi and the Missing Artifacts. The story of Father Crespi is not only mysterious, but highly controversial. He was a monk born in Italy in 1891. His first name was Carlos. He studied anthropology and became a priest. In 1923, he moved to Ecuador to work with indigenous people, and it was there that he spent 59 years of his life until his death in 1982. During that time, the local indigenous people brought Father Crespi artifacts as offerings of their thanks. The artifacts apparently came from all corners of the country, and he kept them all in his home. It's been alleged that he acquired over 50,000 artifacts throughout his time in Ecuador. The Vatican gave him permission to start a museum of his own. He housed the collection there until a fire destroyed his museum in 1962. After he died, the few artifacts that remained were removed by unknown hands, and no trace of them remain today. Some say that they were sold to private collectors, some say the Vatican took them and put them in their archives, and some say the Ecuadorian government stole them. Whatever the case, nobody knows much about the origins of the artifacts. We have photographs of them, but that only adds to the mystery. Many of the artifacts look as though they came from Babylon, strange motifs and symbols carved from gold that don't correspond with any cultures of South America. Some say there's a secret treasure stash in the Ecuadorian jungle that only the indigenous know about, filled with treasures from all over the world. Crespi's artifacts leads people to think that perhaps the Sumerians made it to the Americas and left behind treasure as proof. But nobody knows how they could have gotten there, what this all means, or if Father Crespi's treasure ever existed in the first place. Number 4. What happened to Neanderthals? 100,000 years ago, the planet was occupied by 5 different kinds of hominins. These were all different breeds of ancient humans, but 40,000 years ago, they were all gone, except for one remaining breed. Humans were the only ones left standing. The rest had become extinct. How and why they became extinct is an archaeological mystery that has never been solved. In particular, the fate of the Neanderthals has been the greatest. While Neanderthals may be depicted as brain-dead barbarians, that's not actually the case. The truth is, they were sophisticated hunters. They made tools, they created fire, and they even invented superglue. They decorated themselves with jewelry, they buried their dead, and had a vast knowledge of plant life. They built structures to live in and even provided elderly care. Scientists even believe Neanderthals and ancient humans bred with one another to produce superior offspring. If this is the case, then how did they vanish overnight? One of the theories is that humans used warfare to drive Neanderthals to extinction. They knew they were different, even if only a little, and they killed them with rocks until they were all gone. Another theory is that it was competition with modern humans that drove the Neanderthals out of existence. Humans had better tools, created more elaborate social networks, and were just generally smarter. They took all the food, banished Neanderthals from their groups, and left them to fade away. But these are all just theories. Nobody really knows how these ancient cave people truly went extinct. Do you have a theory of your own? Let me know in the comments. Number 3. The stone egg. Back in 1872, construction workers were building a fence near the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee in New England. As they were digging out one of the post holes, they came across a lump of clay with an artifact in it, buried over 6 feet deep in the dirt. The artifact was a stone egg, something that all these years later, nobody knows the origin of. The egg is confusing for a lot of reasons. First of all, it bears strange markings that nobody has ever seen before. The markings on the stone egg are not like any other markings found on artifacts in the United States. Second of all, the type of rock the egg is made of is not native to New Hampshire. This suggests the egg was carved by someone living very far away, not by the Native Americans in the area. Thousands and thousands of artifacts from Native American tribes have been found, but none of them are even remotely similar to this stone egg. Some of the markings on the stone include astrological symbols, a weird human face, and a single ear of corn. It doesn't make much sense, and nobody has any clue where it came from. Archaeologists also don't know how it managed to get all the way to New England and be buried so deep underground. Number 2. Warriors buried alive. The earliest dynasty ever recorded in China was the Shang dynasty. They ruled from between 1600 BC to 1046 BC. Their capital was at Yingshu in the modern city of Anyang, now a UNESCO archaeological site. Just recently, archaeologists discovered a complex of 24 tombs here, along with several pits containing war chariots. The chariots were buried with the horses that drew them and with the warriors who rode in them. The dead warriors were found wearing hats once decorated with strings of shells. The horses were decorated with gold veneer. Kong Deming with the Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology says it's one of the rarest ancient discoveries ever made in this old city. But it's also something of a mystery, and it all has to do with systematic human sacrifice used as a political and religious spectacle in the city. The thing is that almost nobody knows anything about the Shang dynasty. All historians know is what was left behind on written carvings in the form of something called oracle bone script. It's not that reliable, and was only really used by priest kings to describe things like human sacrifice. It looks as if the horses, the chariots, and the warriors were all sacrificed as part of an elaborate funeral ceremony for someone of even greater importance. It's just that archaeologists don't know why they did this. They also don't know who was so great to have brave warriors voluntarily buried alive for them with their precious horses. Much of what went on during the 600 years of the Shang dynasty is still a mystery. Number 1. The Scythian Prince's Entourage. Archaeologists excavated 2 graves in southern Siberia at the site of Chingete. The burials were found near a great barrow that once belonged to a nomadic Scythian prince. At least, this is who researchers think the barrow belonged to. One of the graves, dated at 2,500 years old, was complete with a wooden burial chamber and the remains of a woman in her 50s at her time of death. She was buried along with a child, a small trove of gold ornaments, and a fancy bronze mirror. All of her treasures were so valuable that the researchers believe she must have been a very important person. This has led to the theory that she and the other people buried nearby may have been part of the mysterious prince's entourage. But this is all just a lot of guesswork. Archaeologists don't actually know if the main burial was for a prince, and they don't know if the burials were made by the Scythians. All they really have are a bunch of skeletons and pieces of gold buried in the Siberian wasteland. Thanks for watching! What do you think the real story is behind Father Crespi and the missing artifacts? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!